Hello, my name is Tony. The very pinnacle in translating the books of Frederick Forsyth into movies was reached early on with Fred Zinneman's The Day of the Jackal in 1973. This superlative adaptation set the bar high, a benchmark all subsequent Forsyth flicks to date have failed to reach, or in some cases even come close to being within distant sight of. I've never read the novel The Dogs of War, somehow it passed me by. One of the many things in life I told myself I must do but never got around to doing. Not that it matters, I'm reviewing the film, not the book. I largely try not to compare books directly to films, as they are different mediums that are created and experienced differently. I think when people run off pompous twaddle like, oh, the book was so much better than the film, what they mean is the book is a better book than the film is a film. Or, I enjoyed reading the book more than I did watching the film. But that may just be my take on it. Would reading the book enhance anyone's understanding or appreciation of the film in most cases? Generally doubtful, I think. We know the film is going to be different, sometimes very different, unrecognisably so. Then there are those shirty fuckers who, dismayed that something in the film has drawn criticism, come back at you with, read the book. Why? I'm talking about the film and what it's like as a film. Oh, you poor illiterate fool, you don't know what that bit means or why this happened. Read the book then. No, I don't want to read the fucking book. I'm watching a film and I want the film to work as a film independently, not something I need a written manual or user guide to pore over for enlightenment. Anyway, when I first saw The Dogs of War, I remember being underwhelmed. It was neither the bruising neo-political thriller vehicle or relentlessly sustained slam-bang action fest I was hoping for. Seemed a bit lacking in the midsection, to be honest, and I don't believe reading a book would have elevated my opinion of it any. Where the film, The Day of the Jackal, crafted exciting cinema out of the detailed processes of arrangements being made, the Jackal going about his business, the investigative procedurals of the law enforcement agencies, The Dogs of War doesn't manage that same sort of dynamic. The minutiae here, the nuts and bolts, is mundane and a bit of a plod. But a year or two later, after my initial cinema viewing, I rented it on VHS. It struck me as a lot better than I remembered it being, and I enjoyed it a lot more. Suppose I was a lot drunker, but still. In the present day, my source of all things Blu-ray recently handed me a copy on that format. Here we are then, time to give it another spin around the blockhouse. James Jamie Shannon, Christopher Walken, is an ex-Vietnam vet turned mercenary for hire. The film opens in pulse-pounding style as he and his team escape from a war-torn province in Central America. They scramble to a passenger plane and barely make it out alive. One of his guys, Richard, doesn't, but the rest, Drew, Tom Berenger, Derek, Paul Freeman, Michel, Jean-Francois Stevenin, and Terry, Ed O'Neill, live to fight another day. Back in the US, Shannon is approached by Endine, Hugh Millay, a British fixer type. Endine works for a big bucks company with an interest in securing access to certain natural resources in the small South African nation of Zangaro. He persuades Shannon to go there on a reconnaissance mission to get the lay of the land and report back. Masquerading as an ornithological wildlife photographer unsuspicious, Shannon finds Zangaro is a brutal militarized shithole under the presidency of ruthless paranoid psycho Kimber Hilario BC Pedro. Kimber lives in a military compound shielded by his soldiers. Shannon runs into British documentary filmmaker and journalist North Colin Blakely, who is blocked and censored by security services when trying to capture events exposing the violent truth about Zangaro. He and his team are pissed off and looking forward to going home. North strikes up a friendship with Shannon and fills him in with details about Kimber's regime. Shannon is provided with a local guide in the shape of the hotel owner's shapely daughter, Gabrielle, Maggie Scott. There is a seemingly mutual attraction between the two. Carrying out night surveillance, Shannon runs into a patrolman, who he kills. The next day, he is arrested, taken to the prison, mercilessly beaten and tortured. There he meets Dr. Okoye, Winston Anchona, Kimber's moderate political opponent, now serving life for his pains. Okoye treats his wounds and informs him that North has been making a nuisance of himself, petitioning the embassy for Shannon's release. Reluctantly, Kimber lets Shannon go and he is deported. Back in the US, he reports to Endine, but refuses his offer of mounting an armed invasion of Zangaro, staging a coup and deposing Kimber in favour of his exiled but mega sleazy and greedy opponent, Colonel Bobby, George Harris. Bobby is all too willing to do business with Endine's company. He's a money grubber. Instead, Shannon decides to quit the life of a mercenary and become a lumberjack. No, that's not right. I mean reconcile with his ex-wife Jessie, Jo Beth Williams. However, when she turns down his offer of a new life in the western US, he reconsiders Endine's proposal. Setting up in France and London with Drew, Michelle and Derek, Terry has opted out, the men start planning for arms, ammunition, transport and fighting soldiers to join the cause. Shannon is being tailed by an operative employed by Endine to monitor his progress. When he runs into North again, the journalist is suspicious of his activities. Although grateful for his help back in Zangaro, Shannon warns him off. Up to this point, Shannon thought his killing of the patrolman was the reason behind his capture and incarceration. North explains that the man's body wasn't found until days after Shannon's deportation. Gabrielle, he reveals, is one of Kimber's mistresses. In fact, his favourite mistress. So, down to her then. Women, eh? Where's that trust, I ask you? North begins tailing Shannon, sensing there is a story unfolding. Endine's hitman is now tailing North, tailing Shannon. He runs North over to remove him from the picture. Enraged, Shannon and Drew torture the hitman for information, kill him and dump his body in Endine's study when he's hosting a celebration dinner for Colonel Bobby. Skipping ahead, the invasion takes place and is successful, but Shannon has a few surprises in store for Endine and Colonel Bobby they ain't seen coming. Imagine The Dogs of War was a bookshelf. On the left, by way of introduction, is a short action-packed novella that whets the appetite to read more of the same. On the right, at the far end, is an action-packed blockbuster concluding in a thrilling and memorable climax. In the middle are some books about the development of the combine harvester, the internal combustion engine, forensic accountancy, and building a gazebo out of UPVC. Metaphorically, that bookcase is The Dogs of War, the movie. It has a great start in life with a pre-credits escape sequence, Shannon's foray into Zangaro and his capture, imprisonment, torture and deportation. Then there is a midsection with, for the best part of 40 minutes, stuff does happen, but it's not very interesting, engaging, nor does it attempt any of the things it allows itself plenty of time to do. By that, I mean apart from Shannon, his team have little characterization, personality, backstory or arcs that mean anything. We know as much about them by the end as we did in the beginning. They're an American, a Frenchman and a Brit. Multinational shadow puppets along for the ride. Very thinly drawn ciphers. Shannon's ex, Jessie, looks like a 1960s American suburban housewife. She lives with her alcoholic, misogynist father who treats her like a skivvy, someone whose primary purpose is to serve drinks and snacks to him and his poker buddies. Her preference is to return to a life of modern slavery and alcohol-fueled abuse with Daddy, rather than begin a game with Shannon, the supposed love of her life. She does sleep with him at a motel though, so no mixed message there. This part feels like blatant padding. A telephone conversation would have been way quicker and possibly more meaningful. Hey baby, wanna get back together? No, I have to fetch an ashtray for Daddy's Jack Daniels infusion. Okay, guess I'll just go invade a small African micro-dictatorship then. Over and out. The details of the planning and the processes of sourcing things and getting all the prep stuff done and dusted could have been fascinating, but is instead pedestrian, mundane and draggy, failing to escalate expectation or excitement for the actual event. Every time I've watched it, I've felt myself drifting off and losing interest. Yet I must concede that the final 20 or so minutes almost makes up for it. The assault on Zangaro is fantastic. The operation is brilliantly filmed by veteran lensman Jack Cardiff. Its all precision mobilization of troops, thumping explosions, gunfire, hailstorms of hot bullets, violent death and photogenic mayhem. Much use is made of Shannon's cool-looking weapon, a grenade launcher known in the film as the XM18, actually a Manville gun. Satisfyingly, blows up a lot of shit and scenery with it. There is a callback to Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch with Drew bursting into a shack to discover a woman in there. He lets her live, turns to leave and she shoots him in the back. Unlike Pike Bishop, he doesn't turn around and snarl bitch and blast her in the guts. He just dies. As we didn't really know him very well though, we don't much care or grieve any. The final payoff is a great twist, and to not comment on it and spoil it for you would ruin my entire fucking day. So, skip the next minute or so if you are particularly spoiler intolerant. Breaching Kimber's stronghold, Shannon confronts the man himself, packing up bricks of cash and making to leave by the back door. With little hesitation, he machine guns him to death. Entering a bedroom, he sees Gabrielle reflected in a dress mirror. He machine guns the mirror. This is saying something, probably. Maybe letting her know he knows what she is or was. No doubt she is now suitably chastened by her favourite mirror being shot. When Endine and Colonel Bobby arrive by helicopter, they find Shannon in Kimber's office. Previously, Shannon had warned them not to be late, but they are. Seated at Kimber's desk is Dr. Okoye. Shannon has appointed him the new president of Zangaro. Okoye tells Bobby he is under arrest. When Endine protests with "this whole country's bought and paid for," Shannon shoots Bobby point blank dead with a killer retort, "You're going to have to buy it all over again." Shannon, Michelle and Derek leave in a jeep with Drew's body. They drive through the empty, deserted streets of the capital in dead quiet until they exit the frame. In fairness, it's a hauntingly effective and fittingly downbeat ending, as A.E. Houseman's mournful epitaph on an army of mercenaries plays over the end titles. Historically, following the publication of the novel, Don Siegel was slated to direct. Then Norman Jewison, then Michael Cimino with Clint Eastwood and Nick Nolte starring. Cimino went off to make Heaven's Gate. Yeah, how'd that work out for you? And Eastwood and Nolte dropped out. Some interesting permutations there to consider in a game of what if. However, we're stuck with what is. It was John Irving's big screen directing debut, and he seemed to get lost in that midsection along with the rest of humanity. 30 minutes of which could have been trimmed out or pared down, and the final battle extended to make it one lean, mean motherfucker of a killing machine. The turgid script by Gary Devore doesn't help much, with dialogue that comes in disconnected chunks, mostly consisting of characters making statements rather than having interactive conversations with each other. It's an odd fish. I don't imagine much of Cimino's original rewrite of Abby Mann's original script remains in place. Playing the only character with any meat on their bones, it's Chris Walken's job to carry the film, and he's never less than watchable. However, my nagging impression is one of slight miscasting, like he doesn't quite fit the role. Don't misunderstand, he's up for it, projecting a wired constitution and channeling a ruthless mercenary decisiveness and mindset with skill and authority. Just physically, he is slight, lacking that military substance, that imposing presence we usually associate with such characters. Might just be me though, and I admit I did enjoy his performance and much of his line delivery when he had some good lines to deliver. In the pantheon of Forsyth adaptations to the big screen, my listing in order of preference goes The Day of the Jackal, original, goes without saying, then The Odessa File, with The Dogs of War running at a respectable third placing. It's another of those frustrating, it's good, but it could have been truly fucking great films that don't quite fulfill their potential. On a positive note though, it's made me determined to finally get hold of the novel and bloody well read it, if for no other reason than to discover for myself if it's a better book than the film is a film. Grateful thanks for your time and attention. Feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. I will be back this way in a little while with something else, one thing of which you can be certain in this uncertain world. They don't call me Mr. Dead Cert for nothing. Come to think of it, they don't call me that at all. But don't let that bother you. Au reservoir for now, pilgrim.